October 1917, Passchendaele Ridge, Belgium. Canadian General Arthur Currie stood at the edge of the battlefield. He'd been ordered to capture it. The ridge wasn't much of a ridge, a gentle slope in the Flanders countryside, 5 miles from the British starting positions to the village of Passchendaele at the top. 5 miles. Currie had been fighting in this war for 3 years. He knew how to read a battlefield. He studied the ground through his binoculars. What he saw was a swamp. The British had been attacking since July 31st, 10 weeks of constant bombardment and infantry assault. The artillery had fired over 4 million shells into this ground. The shells had destroyed the drainage system. The autumn rains had done the rest. The battlefield was liquid mud. Currie watched British and ANZAC soldiers struggling through it, men sinking to their waists, wounded men drowning in shell holes, pack mules disappearing entirely, only their heads visible above the muck. This wasn't a battlefield. This was a death trap. His staff officers waited for his assessment. Currie did the mathematics, the distance, the German defenses, the conditions, the inevitable casualties. He made his prediction. 16,000. 16,000 Canadian casualties to take Passchendaele Ridge. The number was precise. Currie didn't deal in estimates. 16,000 men would be killed, wounded, or missing by the time his Canadian Corps reached that village. His officers were silent. That night, Currie sat alone in his headquarters tent. He could refuse. Send a message to Field Marshal Haig. Passchendaele is not worth 16,000 Canadian lives. Find someone else. He drafted the refusal, wrote it out by hand. The words were clear, the logic sound. Then he thought about what would happen next. Haig would give the assignment to another general, someone less experienced, someone who'd attack frontally instead of methodically, someone who'd lose 20,000 instead of 16,000. The attack would happen. The only question was whether Currie could minimize the cost. He tore up the refusal. He wrote his acceptance instead. The Canadian Corps will undertake the capture of Passchendaele Ridge. 4 assaults beginning October 26th. I estimate 16,000 casualties. He signed it, sealed it, sent it to British headquarters. The number was in writing now. 16,000, his prediction, his responsibility. At least he could try to keep it at 16,000 instead of 20,000, and at least he could try. What Currie didn't know yet was how accurate his prediction would be, how he would watch that number climb. 4,000, 8,000, 12,000, 15,000, man by man, day by day, exactly as he calculated. He didn't know that in 5 months, German troops would retake Passchendaele in days. Everything he was about to sacrifice 16,000 men for would be lost by April 1918. He didn't know that 100 years later, people would still be asking the same question. What does it mean to send men to their deaths when you know the exact cost? October 26, 1917. The first Canadian attack was 12 days away. The count to 16,000 was about to begin. But to understand how we got here, we need to go back to July, back to where this nightmare started, back to the beginning of Passchendaele. July 1917, 3 months before Currie's prediction. Summer 1917 was a crisis point for the Allies. In Petrograd, Russian soldiers were deserting by the thousands. The provisional government promised to keep fighting Germany. The army refused. Russia was collapsing from within. In Paris, French soldiers were refusing orders. Parts of the French army had mutinied after the failed spring offensives. Entire units would not attack. France was limited to defensive operations only. In London, Prime Minister David Lloyd George stared at shipping loss reports. The numbers were catastrophic. German U-boats were waging unrestricted submarine warfare in the Atlantic. Britain was an island. Islands need supplies. The submarines were cutting the lifeline. The United States had joined the war in April, but American troops wouldn't arrive in meaningful numbers for many months. The British Empire was the only Allied power capable of offensive action. Field Marshal Douglas Haig faced an impossible choice. Stop all offensives and watch the alliance crumble, or attack and hope the Germans would break first. Haig chose to attack. The target was Ypres, 3 small ridges on the outskirts of the Belgian town. Pilkem Ridge, Broodseinde Ridge, Passchendaele Ridge. Take the high ground. Push on to Rulers, a major German railway hub. If everything went perfectly, capture the Belgian coast and destroy the U-boat bases. Prime Minister Lloyd George warned his cabinet, quote, "A mere gamble would be both a folly and a crime. Before we send scores of thousands to their deaths, We should have fair confidence of success." End quote. The cabinet approved the plan anyway. Haig believed victory was possible. He wrote in May 1917, quote, "The British armies can be relied on to effect great results this summer, results which may even bring final victory within reach this year." End quote. Victory in 1917. Haig genuinely believed it. July 31st, 1917, 3:50 in the morning. For 2 weeks, British guns had fired over 4 million shells at German positions, 3 times the bombardment used on the Somme 1 year earlier. British and French infantry went over the top. Among them was Lieutenant Colonel Agar Adamson. He commanded the Princess Patricia's Canadian Light Infantry. That morning, he began a ritual he would maintain throughout the battle. He wrote a letter to his wife Mabel. He described the attack, the hope, the duty, the certainty that this offensive would change the war. The letter was optimistic. By the end of the first day, British and French forces had advanced 3.5 kilometers. They captured Pilkem Ridge. It felt like progress. Then it rained. On most days right from the start, unusually heavy rain fell. Years of shelling had churned up the earth. The drainage system was destroyed. The Flanders clay held water like a basin. The battlefield became a sea of mud. German artilleryman Gerhard Gertler described it, quote, "The earth trembles and shakes like jelly. We crouch between mountains of ammunition, some of us up to our knees in water, and fire and fire. We sweat like stokers on a ship. The barrel is red hot. And still, the one and only order is fire, fire, fire." End quote. Movement for men, horses, or tanks became exhausting. The wounded drowned in shell holes. Men stuck to narrow wooden duckboard paths. Easy targets for German artillery. Week 1 of the Battle of Passchendaele. British and Empire casualties 25,000, German casualties approximately 20,000, 45,000 men in 7 days for 3.5 kilometers of mud. The count had begun. August 10th, August 16th, August 22nd, August 27th. 4 more British attacks through the quagmire. Small objectives, limited gains. The German defenses held. The mud helped them more than the British. Adamson wrote to Mabel after each attack. His letters were getting shorter, less optimistic, more focused on survival than victory. The casualties kept climbing. Then came August 8th. Brigadier General John Charteris walked into Haig's headquarters at Saint-Omer. He'd been Haig's intelligence chief for 2 years, a loyal officer, a man who rarely questioned his commander. He placed a report on Haig's desk. The report was clear. The offensive must stop. The ground conditions made breakthrough impossible. The casualties were unsustainable. Success was not achievable under these circumstances. Haig read it slowly. He set it down. "The Germans are close to breaking," he said. "I can see it in the prisoner counts. 5,000 captured. They can't sustain this." Charteris said nothing. "The French mutinies require us to maintain pressure," Haig continued. "If we stop now, we signal weakness. Russia is collapsing. We're the only ones keeping Germany engaged in the West." "Sir," Charteris said quietly, "the mud—" "One more push," Haig interrupted. "We're close." Charteris left the headquarters. The report stayed on Haig's desk. Haig ordered the attacks to continue. This was the point of no return. Haig had been told the battle couldn't succeed. He chose to keep fighting anyway. What followed was 2 more months of grinding attrition. British leaders discussed stopping the offensive entirely, but Haig was convinced it could still work. He changed commanders. General Herbert Plumer took charge. Plumer had a methodical approach: bite and hold, advance in small increments of about 1,000 meters at a time, overwhelming artillery support, consolidate positions, repel the German counterattack, do it again. Slow, grinding, methodical. September arrived, the weather improved slightly. Haig brought in the Australian and New Zealand Corps, the ANZACs, battle-hardened troops, experienced fighters. Using Plumer's bite and hold method, the ANZACs took critical ground, the Gellivelt Plateau, Polygon Wood. The Germans rushed more troops to the front lines, more machine guns. They launched dozens of counterattacks to retake lost positions. Most failed. The mud meant their counterattack units rarely arrived in time. Both armies were bleeding. Week 6 of the Battle of Passchendaele. British and Empire casualties, 100,000. German casualties, approximately 90,000. Adamson's letters to Mabel were different now. The optimism was gone. He described the mud, the bodies, the impossibility of the task. He wrote about men drowning in shell holes, about wounded soldiers lying untended for days because no one could reach them through the mud, about the stench of decomposing corpses that were now part of the landscape. He still signed every letter the same way. "I hope this finds you well." It was the only hopeful thing left to say. October 4th, Passchendaele Ridge. The ANZACs led the advance. That same day, it began to rain again. Cold rain, freezing temperatures, the mud became a freezing swamp. One soldier described it this way, quote, "All around us lay the dead, both friend and foe, half in, half out of the waterlogged shell holes. Their hands and boots stuck out at us from the mud. Their rotting faces stared blindly at us from coverlets of mud. Skulls grinned at us. All around us stank unbelievably. These corpses would lie and rot and disintegrate foully into the muck until they were an inescapable part of it. Horror was everywhere," end quote. The ANZACs captured Passchendaele Ridge. They held it. Haig felt the Germans were on the edge of breaking. Many of his commanders agreed. Intelligence reports were contradictory. Some suggested German collapse was imminent. Others warned of continued resistance. Haig ordered a quick attack toward the final objective, Passchendaele Ridge, October 12th. The British, French, and ANZAC forces attacked hastily. They couldn't get far. German fire cut them down. The mud stopped them cold. The New Zealand division suffered its worst day of the war. 843 men dead, for no gain whatsoever. Australian soldier Walter Fisher saw the exhaustion, the hopelessness. Quote, "Our unit sank to the lowest pitch of which I have ever been cognizant. It looked hopeless. The men were so utterly done. The fellows were dropping out unconscious along the road. The shell-stricken and trodden ground was thick with dead and wounded. Some of the Manchesters were there yet, 7 days wounded and not looked to. But men walked over them. No heed was paid to anything but the job." End quote. 7 days wounded, not looked to. Men drowning in shell holes, wounded men disappearing into the mud, bodies used as stepping stones across the worst ground. The ANZACs were finished, exhausted beyond measure. Week 12 of the Battle of Passchendaele. British and Empire casualties, 180,000. German casualties, approximately 160,000. The battle had consumed over 300,000 men. The British had advanced roughly 5 miles. They still hadn't captured Passchendaele Ridge. Plumer brought in one final elite formation. The Canadian Corps. General Arthur Currie examined the battlefield. He studied the objective. He did the mathematics. His prediction, 16,000 Canadian casualties. He could refuse the assignment, but he knew what would happen. Another general would take the job. The attack would happen anyway, probably with higher casualties. Currie sent his acceptance. October 26, 1917. The first Canadian attack would begin in 4 days. Adamson's letters to Mabel had become lists of the dead, names of men he'd known, friends, subordinates. The letters were darker than anything he'd written before. The count to 16,000 was about to begin. And somewhere in German lines, a soldier named Ernst Junger was discovering that his army was breaking too. October 26, 1917, 5:30 in the morning. The first Canadian attack began. Currie had planned it meticulously. 4 assaults over 15 days, each one advancing a few hundred meters, each one counted in casualties. The target was Passchendaele Ridge. The village that gave the battle its name sat at the top. What the Canadians found was freezing mud and determined German resistance. The Germans were worn down but not broken. They'd been fighting for 12 weeks. Their defensive positions were battered but still functional. Their machine guns still worked. Their artillery still fired. German soldier Ernst Junger arrived at the front in late October. He described what he found. Quote, "I called out for directions to an NCO who was standing in a doorway. Instead of giving me an answer, he thrust his hands deeper into his pockets and shrugged his shoulders. I sprang over to him, held my pistol under his nose, and got my information out of him that way. It was the first time in the war that I'd come across an example of a man acting up, not out of cowardice, but obviously out of complete indifference." End quote. Complete indifference. The German army was breaking, slowly, not collapsing, but breaking. The Canadians advanced through the freezing mud, meter by meter, shell hole by shell hole. After 3 days of fighting, they stopped to consolidate. First Canadian attack complete. Casualties, 4,000. Adamson wrote to Mabel. He described men disappearing into the mud, soldiers drowning with their hands reaching up from shell holes, the impossibility of rescuing the wounded. He was running out of ways to describe the horror. October 30th, the second Canadian attack. More freezing mud, more German resistance, more methodical advancement. Currie watched the casualty reports come in. He was keeping a precise count. He'd predicted 16,000. He needed to know if he was right. After 2 days, the second attack ended. Second Canadian attack complete. Total casualties, 8,000. Halfway to Currie's prediction, halfway to Passchendaele Ridge. Adamson's letters to Mabel were shorter now. Sentences instead of paragraphs. Lists of names instead of descriptions. Men he'd known, men who were gone. He still ended each letter the same way. I hope this finds you well. The phrase had become automatic. Ritual, the only connection to a world where hope still existed. November 6th, the third Canadian attack. The village of Passchendaele was close now, close enough to see through binoculars what was left of it. The bombardment had reduced it to rubble, to brick dust. The Canadians attacked through the mud. The Germans fought back with everything they had left. After 2 days, the Canadians stopped again. Third Canadian attack complete. Total casualties, 12,000, 4,000 more to go. 12,000 casualties. Each one had a name. Each one had a story. Scottish-born Canadian soldier Donald Fraser was bringing supplies up to the front line. A German shell hit near him. He wrote this later, quote, I was thrown by the force of the explosion onto my face. The first thing that surged through my mind was, am I dead? Am I dead? I saw my horse lying dead half over my right thigh and pinning me down. After squirming for several minutes, I managed to pull my leg out. The right side of my face was burning and stinging as if someone had stuck hot needles in it. It was full of tiny bits of metal. I started down the road and only then noticed that my right arm was shattered at the shoulder, completely twisted and dangling. End quote. Fraser survived. Many didn't. Adamson stopped writing detailed letters to Mabel. His letters became telegrams. Still alive. Attack tomorrow. Will write more if I can. The mud, the cold, the bodies, the counting. It had broken something in him. November 10th, 6 o'clock in the morning, the fourth and final Canadian attack began. The objective was the ruins of Passchendaele village, what the maps called a village, what reality called a smear of brick dust in the mud. The Canadians attacked, the Germans fought back. By 8:45 in the morning, Canadian soldiers stood in the ruins. They had captured Passchendaele Ridge. Fourth Canadian attack complete. Currie received the final casualty report. Total Canadian casualties, 15,964, just under 16,000. His prediction had been accurate. Adamson stood in what used to be the village square. There was no square. There were no buildings. There was mud and rubble and the bodies of men who died taking it. He looked at the wasteland around him. This was victory. He would write to Mabel tonight. He would tell her it was over. He would tell her he'd survived. He wouldn't tell her what it cost. He wouldn't tell her about the 16,000. He wouldn't tell her that in 5 months German troops would retake this exact spot in days during their spring offensive. He wouldn't tell her that everything they'd just sacrificed 16,000 men for would be gone by April. He didn't know that yet. Right now, he just knew it was over. The Battle of Passchendaele was finished. November 10th. 1917. The Third Battle of Ypres was over. British and Empire casualties, over 250,000. German casualties, over 200,000. 500,000 soldiers, dead, wounded, or missing. For 5 miles of Belgian mud. Currie's prediction had been accurate. 15,964 Canadian casualties, just under 16,000. He'd known the cost before sending them forward. After the war, someone asked Currie if he could have refused the assignment. Currie was quiet for a long time. He could have refused. The next commander would have attacked anyway, probably less carefully, probably with higher casualties. At least Currie had done it methodically. At least he'd tried to keep it at 16,000 instead of 20,000. At least that's what he told himself. April 1918. 5 months after the Canadians captured Passchendaele, German forces retook the ridge during their spring offensive. They did it in days, with minimal resistance. Everything Currie had spent 16,000 men to capture was gone. Passchendaele taught us nothing about victory, but it taught us everything about impossible choices, about knowing the exact cost and doing it anyway, about trying to minimize horror when you cannot prevent it. British officer Siegfried Sassoon fought at Passchendaele. He wrote a poem in 1918. I died in hell, they called it Passchendaele. 16,000. That's what it cost Currie. That's what he predicted. That's what he knew. And that's what he spent anyway. This is the War Maestro Chronicles. The battle's history remembers. The costs it forgets. 16,000 casualties. Predicted exactly. Spent anyway. 5 miles of mud. Lost 5 months later. They knew the cost. They paid it. We remember why. Subscribe for more stories where the numbers tell the truth, the narratives hide. Thanks for watching.